guest speaker tonight. He's a neighbor of mine, which is kind of cool. I live in Bluemont, Virginia, and Colonel North lives in Bluemont, Virginia, and we share the same post office, and we shop in the same little general store. We walk into the post office and see Colonel North, and oh, this is really cool. And for those of you that don't know, and a lot of people don't know this, Colonel North has a foundation called the Freedom Alliance. And they've got 2 missions, and those missions, one of them is very similar to the work we do at the EOD Warrior Foundation. We give away millions and millions of dollars worth of scholarships, including to some of our EOD children. They have a public policy to really move forward the conservative public policy issues that this country faces today. And they spend a lot of time and effort getting the word out and educating people about what's right and what's wrong in this country. He's a true patriot. President Reagan called him an American hero. He's the grandfather of 17 grandchildren, which I think, I'm the grandfather of 3, and I can only tell you, to me, it's the most proud thing that's ever happened in my life, but I can only imagine what it's like to have 17, because I would love to have that many. He's been married for 48 years to the same lady, which is a big feat when you serve this country. And he's a friend, he's a patriot, and I'm really honored to be able to welcome him here tonight to speak to us. And as he comes up onto the stage, I want to tell you one last story. 2 years ago, right, Colonel? 2 years ago, I'm at the Army-Navy game, and one of my great mentors is Admiral Lynch, who was the captain of the Navy football team when they won lots and lots of games, and Roger Staubach was the quarterback. And I texted Admiral Lynch, I said, "Sir, are you here?" And he said, "Yeah, come down to my booth." And I'm walking down to the booth, and I walk into this booth, and there's Roger Staubach sitting there, and oh, what a great opportunity. And as I walk out, I run into Colonel North, and we're talking. He said, "I'm coming to see you next week." He said, "I've got a present for you." I'm thinking, "Oh no, what's this?" And he said, "I got the most beautiful little puppy, and I want you to train it to be a therapy dog." And I said, "Sir, I got 6 dogs. There's no way in hell I could train another dog." And he said, "I'm bringing you a puppy." And he did. He brought me a little puppy. He brought 3 of them down, and we got to pick. We picked the fattest little one, because it was kind of like me. And his name was Tucker. My wife's English, so Tucker means to eat. So we thought he'd been eating a lot because he's fat. And Tucker's been in training for 18 months. He's leaving Tuesday for his last boot camp. He's a visiting therapy dog at our retreat. He's a Boykin Spaniel. He's one of the coolest dogs you've ever had. If you've never seen a Boykin Spaniel, look them up tonight. They're great, great dogs. Ollie's got the mother, Casey, and last weekend Julie and I were down at Amelia Island, and we ran into an artist that does nothing but paint Boykin Spaniels. And before he speaks, which is unusual to give gifts before, I just want to present him with this painting. This painting is a Boykin Spaniel with a little boy, his grandson, tuckered out, sitting next to this tree. And the painting is actually called Tuckered Out. And sir.
That is a great song. That looks like
We're going to mail this and a few other gifts to Bluemont for you, sir, but thank you for everything you do. You are a true American hero. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Ken. It is always great to be introduced by a fellow warrior, one who's a neighbor, and one who has taken such great care of Tucker, who is Casey, the Wonder Dog's favorite boy. We took several of the herd heroes out on a goose hunt this past January, and I brought Casey along, and one of Casey's other male dogs came up, and the last thing that male remembered was nursing Casey. And so the first thing that little dog does is run up behind Casey and try to stick his face up underneath. And Casey's had enough of that, turned around and just bit his ear. His mom has had enough of that, thank you. I'm glad to be with you tonight because Fox News actually gave me the option of being here with you or being in Kandahar. And I am really glad to be with you all. In fact, I've met several people with whom I have been in Kandahar and in all other kinds of places here tonight. And I can tell you right now, you smell a lot better tonight than you did the last time I saw you. And you clean up well. And you've got beautiful wives. I think that's one of the requirements. Yeah, you do. That's why I married that girl 48 years ago. That's my admiration for all of you and what you do and the work that you're doing to heal the wounds of war. Some of those wounds are permanent, as those who didn't come home. And some of those are the widows and the orphans who would otherwise not have the advantages except for what you have done to help them. There are now, 320 names on that wall, and 130 of them have been there put there since 9/11/01. Which tells you a lot about the commitment and the quality of what you do, those of you who wear that insignia of EOD. The profession of arms is the most demanding vocation that one can have. It tests every aspect of humanity, of life. Those who wear the EOD insignia, no matter what the branch of service, have essential qualities of survival, one of which is situational awareness. I try to explain this to my Fox colleagues because a lot of them don't get quite what I'm talking about when I talk. Situational awareness is not just knowing what's happening around you, but it's knowing how to deal with it, and it's a very important quality. I would also share with you that there's a lot of people who don't have it, which is probably most of the rest of humanity not inside this room or being led by folks who wear the kinds of uniforms that you're wearing. I was stuck in the Indianapolis airport here a few weeks back. Flight was coming from San Diego, supposed to land at Dulles. It ends up landing in, of all places, Indianapolis, which if you've ever been to the C concourse or that particular airline that shall remain nameless, United, it'll hold about 150 people comfortably, and there's about 2,000 people in there at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm looking for a place to plug in my cell phone. I'm wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses at 2 in the morning. I'm looking for an empty plug. There's people sleeping everywhere, and they're all hostile, and they're all angry. And I am too, but I can't even, finally I see a plug behind this older gentleman. I can say older because he's older. And I see behind him there's an empty plug. I walk over to him and I said, "Excuse me, sir, can I plug in my cell phone?" And he looks up at me and he says, "I know who you are." I said, "Well, let's not start something in here tonight we can't end because I've only got one pen with me." I said, "I read your book." Now, I've written 15 books. I'm not bragging. Maybe he quit at one. Then he said, I used to love watching you on television. I'm still on television. All Fox asks is 24/7, 365. Just turn it on and leave it on. But maybe he quit. I don't know. Maybe. Then he says to me, and he's now got kind of misty-eyed. He said, "Can I have your autograph, Mr. Brokaw?" Now, I'm kind of concluded I'm not wearing enough makeup. And I have this tendency that, and Ken has met my wife. She knows my wife. She says I'm a smart aleck. Actually, the word begins with A, but it doesn't have an L in it. She says, "You're a smart aleck." And I do have a tendency. Fox gives us these cards for this very purpose. It's got War Stories with Oliver North on the top of it. It's got the Fox new logo underneath it. So you don't have to tear up shopping bags. You just do the autograph and we'll move on. Right? I take out one of the cards and I flip it over to the blank side. And I said, "What's your name, sir?" And he says, "Phil." I take out my pen and I write on the back of the card, "Phil, all the best, Tom." And I hand him the card. And now I'm feeling pretty smug about myself. And he's got tears in his eyes, and he looks up at me and he says, "I am the only happy person in this airport tonight." Now I ask you, you people have to make decisions every day on the battlefield, and you have to make the right decisions. What is the right thing to do at this point, at 2 o'clock in the morning, having just given this lovely old man who's got tears in his eyes a card that says Tom on one side and my name on the other? What is the right thing to do? I went home and told the moral arbiter of my life, this woman I married 48 years ago and has somehow produced all these kids and all these grandkids and is looking after Casey the Wonder Dog tonight, Ken. I said, "What should I have done?" She said, "You are such a jerk." He is going to get home, and he's going to take that card out, And he's going to show it to his lovely wife. He's going to look at the back of the card. He goes, what the hell is Tom Brokaw using Oliver North's cards for? I still carry the cards. I'm almost out of them. I won't sign yours, Tom, if you come up to it. The books I gave out tonight about many of you and our EOD guys in those books. And it's about the terrible things that happen when things go wrong. I work in television. It's time for a commercial. Thank you for making Fox News #1 in America. I wouldn't have the best job in the entire business. Hannity thinks he's got the best job. I do. My only job is to keep company with heroes. That's all I do. Soldiers, sailors, airmen, guardsmen, Marines, some law enforcement. And it gives me a chance to try to educate my colleagues as to what is a hero. You know, to some, a hero is a person who catches the pass in the end zone on a Friday night football game, or someone who sets a new sports record of some kind. The classical definition of a hero is a person who puts themselves at risk for the benefit of others. That's the classical definition of a hero. That's what all of you have done who wear that insignia. That's what those on that wall have done. My mom and dad met at a USO dance, 1941. He was a second lieutenant in the United States Army. He had 4 youngsters, 3 boys. I was born in Fort Sam Houston, San Antonio, Texas, and their apartment was a Quonset hut. Last year went up to a change of command up at Fort Indiantown Gap. The division actually formed up in Fort Ontario and then moved down to Indiantown Gap and then moved to Fort Sam when it was just beginning to open. By the time I was born in October 43, my dad had already gone to Europe, didn't come back until 1945. And he came back shot up. When I was at this change of command, there's an old gentleman on a walker who's come over to it because that's also the home of the 95th Infantry Division as it exists today. It's a reserve division. It's the Army Training Division. And he walks over to me and it comes with a walker and he says, "Son, you were spawned right here." I said, "How do you know?" He said, "Your parents met up at Fort Niagara. I was a medical officer. I was the only OBGYN in your father's regiment. I examined your mother. And you were in there. And you were spawned right here because the division left here in April, son. You were born in October. Do the math." I said, if they were still alive, I'd ask them. They're gone. But it gave me an opportunity to grow up around a hero. And my uncles were all heroes from World War II, career in both. And I get to do that to this day, to this very day, covering heroes. What does that mean in terms of what the American people, I tell the troops that I cover, and some of you have been there. I mean, I've had dinner with some of you here and eaten MREs with you over there. My job is to let you tell your story. It's not about me, it's about you. And do so in a way that doesn't tell the enemy things they don't need to know. That's my job. And I've been blessed to be able to do that in 58 embeds to now span 15 years. We were talking to Ken about, what do you want me to talk about? He says, how about some of your EOD experiences over there? Let me just give you 2 very quick ones. Number 1, my very first experience with EOD of any kind was at a place called Cantien, where every day it got rained on from north of the DMZ, and there was unexploded ordnance all over that place. And every day right after the rocket fire and the shelling fire, which would occur every afternoon at 1600, by 1700 you got EOD guys out cleaning up unexploded ordnance. The next place was a place called Quezon. My rifle platoon was sent out to secure Quezon because General Ray Davis wanted to go back out there for Tet of 69. 1 rifle platoon. And there was unexploded ordnance all over that place. And I had the great blessing of Marine EOD guys who taught me a lot about, sir, when I run, you better keep up with me. Good lesson, good lesson. Thank you, Sergeant. I did. I still can. A little slower, I still can. Over here in this experience. First experience was I was on a CH-46 helicopter doing a Kazovac on the 6th of April, 2003. And, well, actually, first experience was 2001, Kandahar, with General Jim Mattis. then Colonel Mattis, with the MEU that we went into Rhino, unexploded ordnance all over the place out there. In fact, I believe we had Air Force, Army, and Marine EOD at Rhino. Not positive about that. We also got to go up. The very first people to interview Karzai when he came back was my combat coverage team. And of course, the place we sat in with Karzai was literally one great big unexploded ordnance, because it was Mullah Omar's castle, and they couldn't figure out how to set it off. And so we did the interview inside the castle. And only afterwards did the master sergeant tell me that, see those wires? We just decided not to disconnect them before you guys are done. Don't turn on your radio. On the 6th of April, 2003, on a CH-46 helicopter from HMM 268, an RPG passes through the chin bubble of the bird, passes between the pilot's legs and lodges in the rotor brake housing right above my head. The bird turned around, went back to the FARP, calling for EOD. The tail fins are lodged in the rotor brake housing, smoking. I've taken a couple of pictures of it, and finally the crew chief, gunnery sergeant, pulls me back and says, "Sir, I wouldn't get too close to that. It could go off." We landed. Everybody quietly gets out of the bird. It's got a broken chin bubble now and a smoking tail fin and the back end of the projectile. And the EOD guys come racing up in a Humvee. And Gunnery Sergeant Pennington, who was the crew chief for the squadron and the chief, because it's the colonel's bird, says, "Before you get on my helicopter, when I think the colonel's out of it, it's my helicopter. I want to know, are you a good EOD guy?" And the guy says, "Yeah, I am, Gunnery Sergeant, thank you." He says, "Let me see him. Got all 10? Okay, you can get on my helicopter." And I watched him do this, not from inside. They made us stay outside. What had happened was the young Republican guardsman shooting that RPG at that helicopter coming in to do a CASEVAC in a hot zone had forgotten to pull the pin off the nose safety on the RPG. Thank God, because none of us would be, I certainly wouldn't be here tonight. Second event is the extraordinary events that have occurred up north, where I was just a few months ago, up in Kurdistan, where they don't have enough EOD. They don't have enough help. The Kurds are the only ones to consistently beat ISIS at every turn. I was at the checkpoint where that young SEAL was killed last Saturday. In fact, I was at an event at the NRA last Saturday talking to a group of special operators that was there on another evening like this, smaller. And one of them brought up a picture of me and Petty Officer Keating that we'd taken out there in 2005 or 2006. And he'd gone from a brand new SEAL to being a third tour, a remarkable young man. And it's that kind of thing that happens way too often, where I go out and somebody will bring up a picture and I'll say, "Well, where is he now?" I say, "Well, on the next deployment, he was killed or he was terribly injured." Heroes that I've covered out there didn't sign up to fight for gold or colonial power or the international community. What they did is they signed on to protect us from the worst that could happen. They signed on to offer others the hope of freedom. They have absented themselves from loved ones. They have forfeited the comforts of home. They have gone into harm's way in some of the most difficult and dangerous places on earth. And I want to just close by reminding you that I had the great blessing, but none of you women are old enough to remember this, but some of you guys do. I worked for a president who reminded us that we had a rendezvous with destiny. And our destiny has been to live in the land of the free, because people like you have made us the home of the brave. Thank you for having me here with you tonight. It's been an honor.